to Otherland's Editing Podcast, where two speculative fiction writers and editors help you craft fantastical worlds by keeping an eye on exacting editing and foundational writing principles. Every 2 weeks, we bring you interviews with other writers, advice on editing and writers' craft pitfalls, and reviews of popular media to help you grow. So sit back, relax, and join Margaret Bates and Midnight Boss as we discuss all things writing and editing. Hi, this is Margaret Bates and Midnight Boss, and we're coming to you a little bit late, but this year with our sort of countdown of the Christmas movies we've seen this year for the Otherlands Editing Podcast. We definitely have rated Netflix and a little bit of Hallmark and even some Hulu for some of the things that have been released this year to get you in the spirit of the season and terrible and some not so terrible movies. Before we get to the meat of the ones we watched together, I will make an honorable mention, though we won't dive deep into it, for the Jonas Brothers Christmas movie that came out this year. And I'm saying that because Midnight and I aren't. I think we're both an age where we missed that boat. We're not Jonas Brothers fans because I think we're like just too old for it. So I think the movie only works in context, I guess, if you watch their TV show and knew their personas and individual lore from their Disney days. Because I think the characterizations of them in the film is based on stuff that I just didn't see, which is not a great indictment of a movie to begin with. Because if I didn't watch the other parts, this doesn't make sense. Isn't a great thing for a film that's ostensibly a standalone. But I will say that Midnight kept going, well, I was playing video games and stuff, so I wasn't paying the most attention to it. And I will insist that it's not something you can pay attention to. Like the context doesn't help it be less confusing because there are two things that happen. First of all, every so often it tops itself with completely out of nowhere plot contrivances. Like they have to fly to get to the United States from their European tour. So they randomly get on a plane with a crazy pilot played by the guy who plays on Riverdale or used to, but he's still doing this shtick where he has abs and he crashes because he's taking pictures of his abs, literally instead of flying the plane. And why is this happening? But all these kind of random cameos of some celebs in weird roles, because Billy Lord's also in this as a travel agent who's coincidentally the ex of the crazy pilot. But the other celebrity cameos aren't necessarily playing a character. So you have Will Ferrell who's just playing himself as super obsessed with the Jonas Brothers, but you can't tell which is which. So it's really confusing. But also they have these weird flashes of things. Like there's this one scene where one of the brothers, I want to say Nick, is thinking about how there's always pressure on him. So he imagines his brothers as like small little like miniatures of themselves, like the devil and the angel on your shoulders, but like
I feel like
standing
they were,
on the edge of a sink in like a train.
I think it was on the edge of like the coffee area or something. I was
Yeah.
one of those moments where I looked up and I was like, what is actually happening right now?
And I think the idea is he's having guilt and he doesn't want to feel like he has to handle doing all their scheduling going forward. And again, the brothers being like the devil and the angel on his shoulder, kinda. But like even in context, it doesn't make that much sense. I will say the music is mid, but it is very bizarre. And if you want to sit down and watch something that feels like a fever dream, then this definitely would be the most fever dream like Christmas movie I saw this year. I will say that the one thing that was pretty funny is like a running gag was that I think it was Nick again. I don't know. They're all the same to me, so don't at me. Had been in this musical version on Broadway, just for the joke of the movie, of Home Alone, but as the dad. It was kind of funny because the joke was the play was so awful it closed in like 9 days. So the gag where he goes to see the person who played Kevin, who's like maybe 5 years younger than him in real life, and they have to sing off, and he's still pretty bitter that he was obviously playing the older part. But it's real weird, and it's definitely more like a lot of weird sketch comedy and throwing spaghetti at a wall. So if that's your thing, you could do more boring movies. Now, moving on to actual movies we watched. Midnight, do you want to talk about the first of the ones we're really diving into?
Yeah, sure. So our plan here is we're going to talk about the ones that we did not like as much first, so you can listen to us gripe, and then we'll narrow into ones that we enjoyed and maybe watched more than once. So the first one we're going to talk about, this is actually the one that we most recently watched. It's called A Merry Little Xmas, which has Alicia Silverstone and some guy, and it is about a mom who has her youngest son is about to graduate, and she is about to get her life back after doing 20 years of physical and emotional labor, keeping the family afloat for her negligent husband who just works at his medical practice, ignores her, doesn't celebrate her birthdays, etc. And she's going to sell the house and save the environment through architecture, which was her original plan before she did the Christmas movie thing, and settled down in a tiny little town called Winterlight with her husband and had children and became the siphon for all of their dreams. Ultimately, what happens is that she gets negged for, I'm going to say 3 hours. I'm not sure the movie's actually that long, but it feels like it. And she gets gaslighted into not doing that and getting back together with her soon to be ex-husband that she doesn't end up making the ex with. So that was infuriating.
I guess they saved on the lawyer fees.
Anyway, we have a
Yeah.
couple of things going on with this one, and I'll just set up so you can talk about the reference bit before we get into the silly bits. It is a tiny little town where it seems like everyone knows each other. We don't get to know all those little people that much. We do get to know some side characters, but they're mostly within our family.
Yeah.
So that's probably where you want to jump off is like, this is the small town that the big city girl came to. And then this is what happened after the fact. And it's not really a ringing endorsement of that.
Yeah, and basically, because that's how the movie starts, is like it's animated credit sequence where she like narrates, "This is me before," and then obviously it starts when, it's Alicia Silverstone. She's a Gen Xer, so she's, of age that her kids would be off starting college and stuff. So you just have this sort of after the I leave the big city for the small town guy. It's not that he's a small town guy, and that yes, he comes from Winterlight, but he was in Boston in medical school. He just settled for being a small town. Nothing wrong with that general practitioner, but he's like the only doctor I get in town. So he's like super busy and he never closes. And so that's the point you made. Like he misses birthdays and Christmases and works all the time. And so it is really sad because she's made as much as she can of her life, and she is very close with his dad's. And so they own like the hardware store or like the sundry shop in town. So they're the only people you see a lot who are store owners, but they're also related. So you kind of have a different relationship if they're literally your in-laws. And she's a good mom. I mean, one of her kids, her daughter is at Oxford, so obviously her kid's whip smart. And then her son is a firefighter in town because he's probably not quite 18. It's a big struggle about if you're going to go to college. So obviously she's raised two empathetic and pretty smart kids. They just seem to be shitty to her. But like the rest of it just feels hard because she did siphon her dreams into becoming a very, on the ground, handy person for the town. So she helps fix everything in town, and she's got a pretty good setup where she's very eco-conscious and has a generator, which is important later, and all this stuff in her sort of like trying to keep her footprint small kind of house. And they have a very, not a modest Christmas because they have a nice house, but like they'll recycle it or they'll make ornaments from popcorn. Or so she's very in that sort of hippie space, but she's made her own life of it. But I'm saying she had to make her life as this handy person and build her own business and do all these things because her husband wasn't there. And that's the reason they're getting or supposed to be getting divorces for like 20 years. He emotionally and physically just wasn't around. And that kind of made her a single mom. I mean, not financially, but otherwise. And the movie never, I mean, it addresses this kind of with lip service, but I mean, a couple of days of
She
him saying
mentions it
that over Christmas.
in the
Is-
cartoon thing of she was the single mom despite being married. And it's something to lampshade that, especially at this particular moment, to say that he was not living up to his responsibilities as a father. Like, you made these kids, you gave her this option, she stayed here for you. And for this amount of time, I don't know how long they were married before they had kids, but for this amount of time, like, she gave everything to you, and your minor gripes you treat with equal weight to completely abandoning her. Of like,
Yeah,
he
and hit,
does things like complain that she nags too much and that she didn't buy him an indoor grill. And That
I'm
is
sorry, aren't
nothing.
you a doctor?
Buy it
Don't you have like a
yourself.
doctor's salary? Yeah. The other part of this movie and is that each of them are trying that dating again before they have that last family Christmas before the divorce is official, but they're kind of separated, so it's not like wonky as far as ethics mostly. But he's dating a woman who he helped when her ankle got hurt, so she's kind of a patient. So again, I don't like him because I think he's ethically wonky in that way. But so he's dating essentially Tahani from The Good Place because it is her, but she's playing a woman
Yeah.
named Tess. But it's the very same characterization. And she finds a guy named Chet Moore, man of many hats, who's kind of the town handyman and himbo, and he's real sweet. And so they don't go very far, but he's kind of always helping her with some of her kids' stuff, and he's cute and sweet.
He's funny in every scene that he's in.
Oh, he
And I
steals
would
the
say that
show.
Tess isn't funny in every scene that she's in, but the actress always has a good delivery. I think it was if it were another actress who was less charming, she might come off as kind of mean. But
Yeah,
Tess's thing is that she does a lot of charity work as well as helping women build their own businesses, which I
yeah,
was
she's
surprised didn't tie back into the end, actually. I thought that Tess seemed more angry at the husband because of the way he treated his girlfriend also. But yeah, that loop didn't tie through.
but one of the things that this allows them to do is about halfway through the movie, Alicia Silverstone talks to Tess and her ex-husband talks with Chet Moore. And so they talk to each other's potential new squeezes and they sort of say, this is what you did wrong in the relationship, or this is what they've complained about. And yeah, you're right. Her complaints were like, I had to spend my birthday alone. I had to do all the Christmas prep because you'd work even through Christmas Eve night. And his complaints were like, well, you made organic toothpaste. You didn't buy me the grill, or what was the other one? Or you did composting. I'm like,
Yeah,
you did composting in our yard on your own time is not the same as I forgot your birthday repeatedly. Like they're not the same level of grievance. And I think it's
birthdays,
also,
anniversaries, like raising the kids, like it's all on her.
yeah. And I think the other thing about it is that I don't know if her ex-husband would have even realized this on his own. It's not like he realized it in the last 20 years if he hadn't talked to Chet. So it's almost like her current, for a few weeks, fling had more insight into her and what was affecting her and actually heard it and was able to relay it to her ends up staying her husband. But I don't know if her husband ever would have got there on his own without another dude having to sit down and say, look, this is what made her upset. And so it gives lip service, the husband, I mean, to it as they get back together and reconcile. But part of me is like, I don't know if you can say, I'm sorry for 20 years of neglect and I promise I'll do better. And you can really believe that in real life. I don't think you could in 3 or 4 days over Christmas. I mean, I know they have in this film, a flash forward to the year later, and she's still in town. He's still in town. They're still married. But now she started like a what do they call that? A sustainability kind of consulting firm where she's helping with environmental sustainability around town and I guess the county. I don't know, it's unclear. But I just feel like he doesn't even make a realization on his own or notice it or come to his own epiphany. He has to be hand led by someone else. Like nothing about her ex-husband is any freaking good.
No, he's not. And I'm going to add on to that because it made me really angry how he has a new girlfriend, didn't tell her about it, and then he excuses himself for that and then goes out of his way to try to do things with the kids without her there.
Hmm.
And then turns around when he finds out that she's got a new job somewhere else and she's going to leave and turns everyone against her.
Yeah, there's
That
this
is
huge,
such
horrible
abusive
scene.
behavior that I
Even
want
her
him to be
kids,
thrown off the cliff where
even
they
her
are doing their
kids.
snowboard. Yeah,
Her
her
kids
kids are
are like,
brats.
they're awful, but at the scene where they're like, "Oh, you're moving to Boston?" and he's like negging her, his dads are guilting her because they're gonna miss her, but your kid lives in town. You don't have to keep the ex-spouse if they're gonna move to another state. That's just the way that happens with the divorce. But it's even her son who's turned 18 and graduate high school. He, like I said, he eventually just, and there's nothing wrong with this, becomes a firefighter, so he doesn't go to college. But he's like, "You're selling the house." And I'm thinking, this is not your house. You're about to be an adult. You're about to
He said
have this job.
specifically,
You could
"You're
rent an
selling the
apartment.
house and you haven't even talked to me about it." And I was
Yeah,
like, "And you haven't even consulted me." Of
and
like,
for
you don't get consulted. Of
and for
like, your parents will
reference,
tell you if they can, but like, it's their house and they may
yeah.
have to do things.
And his father has already separated enough to have his own big ass house within
Yeah,
walking
go live with
distance
your
of her
dad.
house. So he's not going to be homeless or have to find even an apartment to rent. He can just move into his dad's giant, like 3-story house. still in the same city limits. But like just the
Yeah.
audacity of you're going to finally do something that you said you've wanted to do for 20 years and you didn't consult me, 17-year-old child whose name is not on the like her kids are awful. They are uniformly awful the whole time. I get that they're being wooed by their dad with like cool fancy trips and snowmobiling and like kids are going to be crappy sometimes, but it was just really horrible how the entire family basically negs her into not going. So that as far as I can tell, mostly the doctor guy doesn't have to change all that much. Like, I mean, I guess you have the flash forward where he's coming home earlier and she's working late because she's doing her own firm building. I don't buy it. That's a guy who worked compulsively for 20 years on Christmas Eve and birthdays, and now all of a sudden he's helpful in the house grilling dinner. I don't buy it. People don't change like
And it's
that.
frustrating because he did have a line where he said that he wanted to get back with her and he said that he could move to Boston, but then they suddenly have her change her mind that she doesn't want to do the thing that she wants to do. And
And the
if you do that, you need to have built up something else that she's going to do to satisfy herself as her career because it's very tacked on that she was like, oh, I just created my own business to do something. And actually, you're a specialist in this and good enough that the firm wants you back after this amount of time, as that they
yeah,
actually want you to help. Why couldn't he have just, he's a doctor. He could move to Boston
there are so
and
many
be a
medical
doctor.
practices and hospitals you could be a general internist in Boston. Like you, it's as long as it's in the same state, he still has the licensure. It's just,
I
it's
mean, it can't be that
frustrating.
far from where they live, and you could actually spend your time supporting her at this stage in your lives because the kids are off, they're doing their thing. Leave one of the two houses for the kid to take care of while he's being a firefighter. It's just like it felt like everything that she wanted, she had to turn around on. As like she was trying to get her son to try to go to college for a little bit. And
Yeah.
she had to, decide that no, it's okay, follow your dream or whatever. The economy's fine. And I don't know why she had to apologize to her daughter because she was never mean to her. But her and her daughter did have a moment where her daughter finally said that she was in charge of something that was environmentally friendly. I don't know why you waited until the end if you're Christmas vacation to tell your mother that. And she had to apologize slash hug the weird boyfriend that came in. Although I guess it was a nice moment for her to say that tell him that she does like him, but the father never does. He's still mean to that
Yeah, I was
boyfriend.
gonna say
He's a
Nigel,
creep
the
the whole time. Why is her love interest such a creep? I just wanted her to be able to run off with Chet Moore or Tess or both.
yeah, yeah, I was like, okay, whatever works. I should say the boyfriend of her daughter is Nigel, and he is an ultimate Harry Potter fanatic. He like works at the park and like brags he speaks Russian. He's a real nerd. And I have my own issues with Harry Potter, so it always rubs me the wrong way. But he's the nicest person to her, pretty much except for Chet, because he never negs her, and her two children and her husband neg her the entire movie and like really downgrade her and like crap on her and crap on the old-fashioned family Christmas. And she gets up to take them to do Christmas tree shopping because she said that they had wanted to do an old-fashioned pick out a live tree, and they spend the whole time in the car complaining. And Nigel's like, "Oh hell, I like you, Nigel. You're the only person here who isn't treating her like crap for 3 weeks." So
Yeah.
they try and smooth over this as well. And this is where I was talking about like homages and referencing material. With basically, there's a snowstorm on Christmas Day, and because she's this big sustainability person, she's got like 1 million solar panels on her roof, which is like a running gag of the movie. But it's the only place in town that has power when all the power goes out. So she shows up at her house, and everybody who's been a neighbor because they don't want to freeze has come to her house, and they've brought their wine and their food they were going to eat at their houses. And it's a big town party, and they tell her how much she's helped fix this and set up a greenery or a topiary or something on the top of City Hall. So there are cool birds there, all these kind of stories about how she's made town better through her fixing things. And it's supposed to be very reminiscent of that final scene of the party in It's a Wonderful Life, where people are telling George Bailey that, you saved my life or you did this, which is true because one of the people who wires him money would have died in like the war without him. But it doesn't work here for a couple of reasons. And I think one of them you already hit on, Midnight, was like we don't really see her interact with her neighbors. We don't see a running through line of her going to this place or that place or fixing the Christmas tree display in the public school or going to fix the lights or creating a
Yeah.
new set of dog runs at the animal shelter. Like if that were in there and you saw what an irreplaceable part of the fabric of the town she was by interacting with the secondary cast, that would be something. And I know they can do that because as dumb as it was, Hot Frosty last year did that where he's doing things at the middle
Right?
school and he's helping the old ladies and he's at the diner. And so the whole town like likes him. But in this one, you don't see her interact with anybody who's really not her family or her family's new girlfriend in the case of Tess.
She has her
So
best friend who is Melissa Joan Hart and one neighbor lady who she does stuff for, but it's really not enough for
George
the
Bailey ending.
expanse of like the very of like you're all coming to my house of uh
And I think,
so
yeah, and I think the other thing about like it that misses the mark with George Bailey, who really was an integral part of Bedford Falls because he owned a business there that was really the only counterpoint to Mr. Plotter and his bank and his authoritarianism and all of that, because he's the only person there who owns a competing bank, essentially the savings and loan that he didn't want to own. I'm not going to go into all of its wonderful life, but we will someday. But the point is that he also was a counterpoint to something else in the town. So not only was he integrated with his neighbors, but he stood for something. In her case, she kind of just has a handy person business. But the other thing is because George Bailey had a mission and at least staying there and sacrificing part of what he wanted to do because he wanted to travel, he wanted to see the world. He forego that to help protect the town. In her case, she does not get to live her dreams as a young woman to give her husband his dreams. And then she doesn't get to do it again because the town's like, you help fix stuff, yay. But there's not like her sacrifice doesn't build to a bigger thing. It's
it
not
also doesn't
something
make
that
sense.
stabilizes the town. It doesn't fit in with how much we've seen her interact with the town. It's just not earned. And it's also still like you can still go to Boston and have that life back at the firm that you used to work at, and it's not going to affect things because you're the one who already said the reason you were considering it is because your kids were already grown and one's already in Oxford, so she's never even here except at holidays, and the other one is about to be a firefighter and like a grown up and could move in with his father or could get an apartment in town if he wants to stay there in White Lights or whatever. So like it's not equivalent, and that's really hard for me
Yeah.
because they're like tying it to the emotions and the associations with a far better Christmas movie to get you to go, it's good that she gave up all her dreams a second time. Because what I
But
see is
again,
in
it doesn't make sense to me because that scene is them supporting her and saying, "We're gonna miss you. Like you were so
yeah.
great." Of like, "Thank you." It's like a scene of like, "Yes, you've completed your work here and you've added so much greatness to this town. They better appreciate you." Which sounds like they're about to send her off, and then the very next scene, he's like, "I want to get back together. Let's move to Boston." She's like, "No, let's stay here, and I can be miserable forever." And so,
Yeah,
whatever.
it's really disappointing. It's very much like don't follow your dreams, kids. Um, so the next movie on the list isn't one that makes me confused or mad. It's just bland.
Yeah.
It's this is one of the few Hallmark ones we did watch this year, and it's called Single on the 25th. And your required heteronormative couple of the episode are Nell and Cooper. And Cooper does businessy business. And I assume Nell has a job. I don't remember what it was because mostly she'd been planning to have her family come in and visit her in Chicago for the holidays, but her uncle breaks his hip, so her parents have to stay there, and she's booked like a million different Christmassy things. And so she has to do them herself because she doesn't want to eat all the money on the tickets, basically. So it's her trying to learn to do things by herself at Christmas, but she usually ends up just doing them with Cooper, so they're single together. Deal with that concept as you will. And they're just, it's fine. It's just really very bland. Like I had to relook up the details and look stuff back up on IMDb because I think we watched it on Thursday night, maybe. And it's only
Yeah.
Sunday for reference. So it's only we're only recording 3.5 days later, and I don't remember much about the movie. So it's just it kind of happened, but it's kind of like eating a rice cake.
I remember that they went to a very expensive restaurant and did something very weird by moving two single tables together. I remember she bought an almost $2,000 ring that was basically a piece of wire.
Oh, that
So
made me
she must
sad.
get a lot of money at what she does.
Oh yeah, she's an event planner. I remember she's an event planner slash fundraiser to make sure the university she works for can fund scholarships. So she's very event project minded. But yeah, she has enough to drop $2,000 like it ain't nothing on a ring. And I'm like, that's my
A much
rent.
better concept in there. I think that's the problem is that the what got me about this from the very beginning is that they're like wah 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 single wah wah from the very beginning, which means that what's happening. And then the that she's whining about it from the very beginning, and then she goes to get her Chinese food and he basically tells her to stay home. It's not her own concept. So the hear me out of it, the interesting premise of it that should drive it isn't there at all. It's not like she's doing her single Christmas on her own. It's like her own adventure. And then she just keeps having to run into this guy who she has so much chemistry with. It's just that she and he are in places together at the same time until towards the end when one of his jerk coworkers tells her that he thought that she was pitiful and they break up for a little while and then they do something weird in an expensive restaurant again.
Uh,
It's dreary because they don't like lean into what would make this premise interesting and fun to watch.
yeah, if it were something like, oh gosh, help me. But like once upon a time, there was a movie called I Me Wed. I didn't watch it, but it was about a woman who decides to marry herself because of self-confidence or something. But like, you're right. If she'd come up with the concept of, you know what, I'm gonna just make the most of Christmas and I'm gonna be single and do the single thing upright and have confidence in it everywhere I go, and she kept serendipitously bumping into Cooper, that would make more sense because it would have agency for her. But
And
they're
it kills me also that
neighbors.
she's an event
So
planner and
they're
he's supposed to be
neighbors.
planning an event and they never connect those dots.
No.
Screw you.
So
Like,
like
what
you're
on
right.
earth? Why
He
would you
helps
not?
her come up with that idea when they're kind of in the same building, like they're walking the hall, or he lets her in because she locks herself out for a second. But like you're right, she doesn't come up with the idea of I'll just be like doing my best up at single Christmas. He tells her how to do it and shows her all his ideas for it. So she's very passive. And also you're right about the part where it's they had one scene at a coffee shop for 5 seconds where they're like, I should help you plan your party. Okay. But then it never really comes to fruition. It's a lot of missed opportunities. I did thought it was funny that they have like the price fix menu up scene where she's gonna go anyway, and he goes and they set up the separate tables, and then again that's kind of their like reprise at the end where he goes to see her at New Year's Eve instead, and it's I love you, blah blah blah, and we all have two separate tables again. I guess just because I in my head I imagine the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of the staff being like, it doesn't matter. This is like a $700 menu. Just give this woman
It
what
would have
she
been
wants.
funnier if they made those staff characters who were like commenting on these two as they see them doing their
And then
thing.
they're back
And
again.
then at
Like,
the last
gosh
one,
darn it.
they're like, push the tables together.
Yeah. They're like, you're never gonna believe it. This is great. Like they get out the popcorn while they're watching from like the wings of the
It
kitchen.
could have made it a lot more interesting. Like the
Yeah.
actress who plays Nell, she doesn't have a lot of life in this particular role, but I did look her up and I've seen her in a couple of things. She's not completely untalented. That's a weird way to say that because I haven't seen her in a lot of different things. She's like the one of the ladies from Agent Carter, Angie Martinelli. You know that she can really bring a character together, but not in this movie because
There's nothing
not that
written
well
there.
written.
It's real thin.
Um,
Yeah.
Additionally, as we were talking about this, we started making jokes that this was basically an alternate universe where it was illegal to be single at Christmas because they have a support group for that. And
Yeah,
I
they
was like,
do. It's super weird. And it's specifically single at the holidays. It's not just like I'm sad I'm single.
it's like, oh, I've been diagnosed with being single.
Yeah. It's super weird and I don't understand it. Like it does feel like because she's very focused on it and they play it like she's got a terminal diagnosis. Because not only does she have the support group, but at some point she meets a girl at Cooper's office Christmas party because she's his single friend who goes
Yeah.
with him as not a plus one plus one. I don't know, unpack that as you will. But the woman she meets, she's like, I just it's hard for me to be single. I'm new to the firm, so I felt really awkward coming alone. And she gives her this big rah-rah speech of you can be single at Christmas. And I'm like, you're acting like she's gonna die of the black lung. What is going on here?
Yeah,
Um,
it's terminal, this being single.
it's
Of
super weird. She thinks that this brings to mind, not every movie we watch, because some of those were just fun, but as a writing quirk, one of them is don't make your character's problem something that if you're trying to write, this is supposed to be a contemporary, it's supposed to be just like a regular movie. It's not supposed to be a dystopia. That isn't problem or like a problem that makes it seem so big and like I have terminal singleness at Christmas. Like it's so overblown. You have to keep going like, wait, what? Like, why do you need a support group for this? Why do you need to give a motivational speech to this other person who happens to be single at a Christmas party? Like, you're treating this way worse than it actually is in real life.
And some of the
It's
things that she
very
has to
odd.
do while is just like go forget Coco by herself. That is not a problem for anyone.
Yeah, like I
I'm
get
thinking like
not
what
going
would
to a
be
Price
something that would
Sticks
be weird to
venue.
do by yourself, and it might be going to a class where you're going to make gingerbread cookies by yourself, where everyone else is going in like twos or threes. Might feel a little weird, but
Might literally be
although she
difficult if
already
you have to
knows
do
how to
all in
cook
an hour.
gingerbread cookies because
Yeah.
it's in an early scene. So I don't know. So come up with something that actually makes it feel a little awkward. Give her a
Well,
little personality. I would like her to be the vivacious one who is just like, I love Christmas so much that I'm gonna do this by myself. And the problem, like the
which it
tension
should
between them, they
be.
kept saying it over and over of like, he doesn't really like Christmas, but he likes all the Christmas things.
He was
If you
gonna
want to
go
do that,
spend it
she
in
needs to have
Aspen
some oomph.
skiing. He was just gonna
Yeah.
go and like ditch the holiday, ditch his dad, and go skiing. The fact that he keeps coming up with the activities to do doesn't fit the personalities either. It's
Us.
very
Yeah, it's
odd.
not well written. That's the biggest problem. It's the writing. It's not great. I don't think that the guy playing it did any favors either, but to be fair, he could be the best actor in the world and I would never know because of this writing. So,
Yeah.
as far as I know, they're amazing, and it was really just the writing and directing that left them down.
No, that
But
guy's a regular in all the Hallmark movies. That's as good as he can do.
oh,
He makes a new one every year for the last decade. This is what
well,
he
he's
does, which
probably tired by now.
he probably makes more
Okay,
money than
let's
we
move
ever
on
will.
to the
So
next one. Let's
yeah,
talk about
we're making it
champagne
sound more interesting
problems.
than it is. Yeah.
It's on Netflix too, right?
Yeah, it was. It was a Netflix one.
Yeah, so this one is about what does she actually do? I call her Champagne Girl in my summary. It's like she's there to
She's
convince
part of
somebody.
a conglomerate that like marketing, I think, because basically the champagne company she's going to see is a family-owned vineyard where they've hit hard times, blah, blah, blah. So what she represents is a business that can like rehabilitate the brand and help with both like distribution and marketing again. So another partner to carry the load, but do both the PR side and the investing capital, which
Yeah,
sounds really
so
boring, but like, business.
she gets the big case and her ex-boyfriend is mad. He's only in it for a couple of seconds, like in the beginning and ending. So
Yeah.
ex-boyfriend gets mad, but she goes to France and she immediately screws some guy that she meets in a bookstore goals. And then it turns out that
Hey,
he is the son of Mr. Champagne Baron
he
who
is though.
she's gonna be meeting the next day. And then it's like, wow, this is awkward. And there are a bunch of people there who are trying to pitch to buy into that champagne vineyard, which
Yeah,
it
she's not the only
include,
PR firm trying to buy a stake or be their new PR distribution partner.
yeah,
They're all kind of like
includes
three competing pitches or four. Four.
includes some wacky characters, including Otto the German, who has no sense of smell, so he can't really taste the wine. And then there's Roberto, who is the best character.
Roberto is gay and proud of it, but he's also like just this party guy. He just loves boats and he just loves being on his yacht and he loves sipping champagne and life. And he literally just wants to, he's like the son of a venture capitalist or something. So he's like, my
Yeah,
dad has
got
$30
two
billion.
Nepo babies in
dollars.
this.
Yeah, yeah. And I usually hate Nepo babies. I do. But he's just like, I just really like your product. I don't know anything about business or marketing or
Yeah, he just wants the product
finance.
to be able to continue to do well because they had a rough year because of some of the grapes not doing what they should. And he's like, I just want to buy it and make sure that it keeps existing so I can keep having
Yeah.
parties.
So basically his pitch is I just want to keep it the same, but I'll invest capital and you keep doing whatever it is you do, which spoilers becomes what they end up going with, which kind of makes sense if you want to keep your brand but have essentially a silent partner for more capital
Right?
influx. At least he
That seems like the
understands.
best pitch.
Yeah, he understands the brand and is a genuine fan of it, so that makes it easier to work with. So he does win.
There's a
And then
scene where he identifies the specific like year and where it was made and other specific things about it. And the guy who was supposed to be testing them pulls it out and he's like, Seriously, and he says, "I drink a lot of your wine."
Yeah, he does. It's really fun. He's just really fun. And Otto is fun in his own way. And at first it's like, oh, they're making fun of Germans. But no, Otto is just an odd dude. He's a little dour, a little obsessed with death, definitely existentialist in his pitch. His like commercial, he said we could do this is like very has 1984 vibes. But he also is really into Krampus. He's just genuinely an awkward dude who actually kind of like a weirdo with a heart of gold who's actually really sweet. So this movie
Yeah.
is kind of bland with the leads who are fine. They're serviceable. They're just not very memorable. But because it has some really interesting side cast to fill it out with Roberto and Otto, and they're both trying to also buy into the wine, it's interesting. I mean, they
Concept is that they just take them away, they spirit them away to the vineyard after the meeting where they have to stay there for like a week or so while they choose who's going to buy the business and do little trials where they make them like test the wine and say what notes they understand or like dust off the bottles or
yeah,
other
yeah, like
things.
twist them, yeah, that stuff. Yeah, to like rotate them. I don't know. I don't know anything about wine. But yeah, it is what it is. But the side characters do make it a little bit more interesting than it would be if it were just like honestly a Hallmark movie where you don't have that extra quirkiness to it for most of them. And the one thing I'll say is it's one of those where eventually, like you mentioned, the ex-boyfriend isn't there much, but towards the end of the movie, he's flown out to make sure she closes the deal. And so she and he argue behind closed doors about the deal because secretly the company that's offering this bid that she works for is going to help it be sold off essentially for parts to this multinational corporation in Japan. So we're going to strip you and use the brand name. And of course, Henri is walking by when he hears that like small part of conversation, and then she condemns her ex-boyfriend, says, I don't want any part of this after Henri moves by. So like he has this thing where he thinks she's betraying him. And so unlike grown adults, they don't just talk about it. They part separate ways. She goes back to America for a little while, sad, sad, sad. And this is one of those things where it, like I've said, is a artifact of rom-coms of the 90s and the early 2000s where they didn't know how to have like that climax dramatic tension, so they just like arbitrarily break people up for the third act. And they do that sometimes in lesser books. And like thinking just to be aware of, especially if you're writing a rom-com, whether it's holiday themed or not, if you have two characters whose conflict that keeps them apart for part of the book or whatever creates their dark night of the soul, and the climax is really based around misunderstanding a snippet of a conversation or overhearing the wrong snippet of a conversation out of context, then you don't actually have enough sustaining conflict. And so that does make this a little frustrating to watch because it's such a tired cliche. And also, she would have saved herself money on a plane ticket back to the United States if she just like talked to him. And it's mostly Henri because he starts avoiding her. In general, don't just have your character's problems based
Yeah,
around, oh, if we had a conversation, we could fix it.
right.
It's
Yep.
more common than you think. People still do that.
Yeah,
Um,
they do. And people complain about readers complain about it all the time, and people still put it in there of, oh, I overheard part of a conversation but didn't stick around to hear the rest of it.
well,
Of
context matters.
yeah, there's a whole thing about what you allow them to overhear or use or whatever, but let's like to move on of if you're going to have your third act conflict, you need to have enough conflict there to do something with it. Of like, if there's not enough tension between your leads to genuinely drive the
Yeah.
story, then there's something. My biggest disappointment with this movie is that I've seen a better version of a guy who owns a vineyard, and that's the French Kiss movie between Meg Ryan and Kevin Kline, where he does a French accent the whole time,
Yeah, I've
and
heard
she
that.
makes fun of him sometimes with his accent. And like he's going to be an old man smoking and saying, "You people, you make my ass twitch." And there's a whole lactose intolerant scene in that movie as well. It's competing against a similar concept, but if they had made the two leads a little more like engaging to be like, oh yeah, well, I really want them to get together, then it would have elevated things more than just saying, well, the side characters are pretty fun.
Yeah. So the next movie you watched is the other one that we saw from Hallmark this year, and it's the Keller Family Christmas. I think it's Vacation is the full title. And it's got Jonathan Bennett, who was from Mean Girls, the guy, I guess Aaron Samuels, who's in math class.
Hmm.
And another, he's got a girl who plays his sister. Her sister's name's Emery. He plays a guy named Dylan. And their third sibling is named Cal. and he's played by Brandon Routh, who you might know from Legends of Tomorrow or The Nine Lives of Christmas, which we've talked about before, or Superman Returns. Any of those. And it's really about these three siblings who their parents are like, we haven't had a family vacation in a while. We're going to go on the boat tour of the Danube and see Germany and Austria and do all the kind of things we like because your dad was randomly an Olympic athlete in like the 80s and he had to go to like, the German Olympics, so he likes Germany. And it's really just their kind of antics and their sibling relationships and the three people they kind of either are already dating in Dylan's case or people they find on the trip who they start up relationships with while they're there in Emery and Cal's case.
I
So
think this movie does what the last movie does not do, in that all of the characters are like, there's a lot of punch to them. You have a really solid character for each one of them, which means anytime that the siblings are together, there's good chemistry. When they're with their potential partners, there's good chemistry, even though I would say the love interest for the older brother isn't as well developed, but it doesn't really matter because you can see chemistry between them. And so it's entertaining, whatever they're doing.
yeah, and I think it also spoiler territory, I guess, if people care. But this one's going to sort of play a little into the Jingle Bell Heist one as well, that we'll talk about in a minute. But both of these have a little bit more at stake and a little more depth than some of your average Christmas movies. In this case, although you don't know it till like the last 10 minutes of the movie, the reason the dad insisted that they come out is that he's just been recently diagnosed with Parkinson's and he
Yeah.
doesn't know how many more family trips they can do, which also actually has the main conflict of the movie, if there could be said to be one, is that Dylan was trying to propose to his boyfriend, but he's sensing that his boyfriend's not telling him things, and his boyfriend's a neurosurgeon or neurologist. And so like he thinks it's something about their own relationship. It turns out that his parents had gone to his boyfriend confidentially as a second opinion on the case. And obviously, he couldn't tell Dylan until it was time, and his dad wanted to reveal it. Anyways, that's the one point of tension, but it does ground it a bit more that it's kind of the family trying to have one of those last trips before things change and what you may be able to do or expect with a family Christmas changes. But it also balances out what else would be like hijinks and riding in silly sidecar motorcycles and wearing lederhosen and, sleeping in tiny German rehabilitated inns on the floor. So there's all those kind of funny I'm in Europe moments um that you kind of see in something like that or Eurotrip or Hostel till it gets really dark all of a sudden halfway through the movie. But it's grounded in the fact that these siblings really do like each other and they really do have, like you say, a good rapport. Like you feel like they bicker with each other and that's a real thing they would do. But also, like on the other end, there is this like family stuff going on that's serious. Siblings has issues on their own lives. Like I do feel for Emery, the sister who's the youngest sister. She just got laid off, and you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
She says
relatable
by robot
problem.
overlords. So it sounds like they destroyed her position with AI,
It
which
does.
is a struggle for her because she went into the data stuff because, right, it was supposed to be the practical job. And what she really wanted to do was photography. And so her issue is really just trying to embrace, what am I going to do with my life and how am I going to balance this between being practical, like being able to pay my bills, and also getting to do things that I care about. So she does hit a good stride with that after this trip, and partially as a result of it.
And her
um
brothers are very supportive, but it's hard for her too because her brother Dylan is like a successful architect, which becomes relevant because he'll eventually use that skill to help pre-plan a community for his dad. And her brother Cal is like a successful football coach at a college. So she's coming
yeah.
home to, even though they have other stuff going wrong in their life, she's like, oh, crud, my brothers have good careers. So it's a very relatable thing, especially right now when the job market is so terrible. Without being heavy handed, but there are parts to their lives that are realistic. I can name what's going on in their lives, which you can tell is already a big change from single on the 25th, where I was like, one does some business stuff and one plans parties. Anyway, but so each of them has a little bit of like texture. And I just think it's the chemistry they have as siblings bickering that really kind of sells it. But in a
Yeah.
nice way. They don't hate each other, but they still have all those things you do to annoy your siblings when you can give them noogies or whatever. It's cute.
And two
Um,
out of three of these actors are frequently in these kind of movies. So it's
oh
not
yeah.
that the actors who do this are uniformly bad. It's just that sometimes the writing and the acting just doesn't work. But in this, you have The two brothers have been in multiple of these kinds of movies, and they are always a delight.
Yeah, they're
So,
charming on their own. So having both of them kind of playing off each other as big brother and little brother is cute too. So I think the girl who plays Emery might have been on that show The Middle, which I always thought it was like a Malcolm in the Middle knockoff. But
yeah,
like, so I think she's been around and stuff too before. So the next one is from Netflix and it's called The Jingle Bell Heist. The couple for that is Sophia and Nick. And Sophia works at a department store in
yeah,
London, and Nick used to work, or at least be the security, like, the tech monitors, not like the guy who sits
yeah.
outside
He's
the
this
door and
tech
like,
specialist for
yeah,
security.
he was for them, but he got fired and put in prison because the official story is he had set up the cameras in a way to steal merchandise, and he went to prison for a couple years for it. It's ruined his relationship with his wife, who's divorced him, and now he's living on his friend's couch because it's hard to find work when you're an ex-con.
Yeah,
And his daughter, he just really worries about having ability to be there for her. And his wife wants to move to, I think, Birmingham? Anyway, somewhere it's set in London, so she wants to move a few hours away by train.
yeah, because she
And
needs more help, or at least to pay less rent. And so it's not like she's trying to be mean. Their
it's London,
relationship
it's
does fall
expensive.
apart because she doesn't believe that he's innocent, but she's not trying to be cruel to him about the child. It's just that she needs more help than she can get from him right now,
Which he is
because of the
innocent
situation. Yeah.
because the department store has a chief executive and he's a dick. I'm
Yep.
not gonna like mince words. He's a dick. And he does this thing where he sets up different security personnel to take the fall for quote stolen merchandise, and then he gets the insurance money, but he's already still got the merchandise, and he's been running this for a bit. Nick went down the river for it, and Sophia has a friend who is like a just on the ground security guard who gets set up for it as well for some missing jewelry while she's working there and she sees what's going on. Nick, to be fair, thought he might be able to try and actually steal from the department store when he can't find any other work. So he has set up cameras there. So that's when he sees her pocket a few things from like Lost and Found. It wasn't enough. It's like a few hundred, we'll say dollars. I mean, I'm sure it's in pounds, but I don't do the conversion in my head very well. Initially, he's like, I saw you do this. I've got the proof. It's on this jump drive. I'll go to the actual department store owner.
Romantic blackmail.
Yeah, basically. And we're going to try. Okay. And he's like, but we can actually just rob this place. You've got the access. You're literally an employee who has the key. You know the shifts of everybody. Let's do this. And so they go through the stages of planning it. And it's complicated. You got to get all the steps together, like any type of Ocean's 11 sort of heist. But about halfway through, they realize the only way to get a particular, we'll say MacGuffin, but it's basically a fob to open the safe or something, is to have Nick try and seduce the department store owner's current wife at a party. And so they do try that plan.
Played by
Um,
Lucy Punch. So that tells you all you need to know about that character.
yeah, so but they don't, I mean she's not stupid, so she realizes who he is pretty easily. It doesn't help that he's trying to get like clues or help from Sophia over an earpiece, so he's acting wonky. But she just hates her husband because her husband's a real dick. Like I cannot tell you
And
how
cheats on her
much.
regularly.
Yeah, he's a dick. So she's like, no, 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 I want you to get my husband and I want to help you because I want to take him for everything. I don't want to divorce him. I want everything. And so she helps be real inside man who actually has the access
Yeah.
codes
What I
and timing
appreciate
and
here, and if anybody watches it, we're not going to tell exactly what happens. It's like it does the heist movie thing where you think it's going to go one way, and then it looks like it's going to go the other way, and then it goes a different way. And that's the fun thing about heist movies is that you can know the plan, but not fully know the plan, and that allows you to keep guessing to what's going to happen. And it keeps it interesting throughout. Now, this film is darker in tone than
I,
some of the other ones that we've mentioned. Like there is a serious thing in the Keller Family Christmas, but this one is fully darker in tone, kind of throughout.
yeah, I think it's harder as a way to watch, but I think it made it more grounded for me because her mom does have cancer, and it's not like one of those cancer moms in a Hallmark movie where they're already, I'm gonna be super honest with you, dead. So it's kind of like not on screen. Her mom's in the
Yeah.
hospital. The reason she even started trying to steal things out of petty cash or like lost and found was because they are thousands of dollars in medical debt from being in the States. Her mom's a British citizen, so they moved back because there's an NHS there. But then her cancer advances to the point where the NHS wait list is so high. They're like, oh, you need to see a private specialist. Like, we don't have any money. So her mom is in the hospital, and the only way for her to get that advanced treatment is money. And the only way for her to get that is to rob this safe because they've been
Yeah,
destitute her whole life. Her father abandoned her when she was very young, blah, 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 blah. So it's kind of always been the two of them against
yeah,
the world. So watching her deal with that, it's sweet because as she and Nick become partners and then start falling for each other, Nick actually comes to the Christmas time at the hospital and like she, brings sweaters and all this kind of stuff and like meets her mom and hangs out with her. It's definitely not just, oh, my mom has cancer in passing. Like you see this hospital scenes, you see her and her mom interacting, you see Nick interacting with her mom. It's puts a lot of stakes in there because no one wants their mom to suffer like that. And you feel bad for her because they're already in so much medical debt. So also very relatable. Except the part where
okay.
someone robs a department store. You
Yeah,
shouldn't
but he
do
is a
that.
billionaire or something. He can get robbed.
Yeah,
This
just
is
don't
our
try it at
fantasy.
home or you'll get arrested.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Like you'll
so
end
get
up like Nick
arrested.
did the first time. So, but I recommend it. And you're right. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil the, oh, it went in a completely other direction because it is worth the payoff and it's a
Yeah,
good payoff. I will say that even though it's sad about Cancer Mom, it's not a tragedy. So nothing sad happens by the
it
end of the
wasn't one of the
movie.
movies
So
that had me actually like weeping. Of
yeah, yeah. No,
there
no,
were a
it,
couple
yeah,
this
there are a couple,
season that
yeah.
got me. Um,
Yeah, no
uh,
one's gonna like be real. You're not
I
gonna
think I
watch
did
that.
have a
It's not
few
like,
moments where I was a little like, "Oh no, am I gonna?" But not really. I
yeah.
did this one, but um,
Yeah, there's no
so
movie on this list where someone just kicks the bucket that I can think. Well, that's not completely true,
that's not
but
true.
that's
We'll
not
get to
true,
that
but
one.
in a good way. In a good way. A good way to be dead if there is such a thing.
Our
I
next one is called My Secret Santa. That one's on Netflix too, right?
then the last two, these have all been on Netflix, so
Yeah.
in the last
Netflix has been
couple
doing a
higher
good
ones.
job with the Hear Me Out Christmas films, which I think are some of the best because people keep seeing the same tropes over and over again, and
Yeah,
everybody wants to
totally.
date Santa. So our protagonist is a single mom who's going to be Santa. So it's basically like Mrs. Doubtfire, except gender flipped, and the star is an ex rock star, and it's Christmas. And so that's your hear me out. We have an ex rock star loses her job and wants to get her little daughter into snowboarding lessons at this fancy resort, but she can't afford it because she just lost her job. And so she's going to dress up like Santa and do that job so that she works for the hotel technically to get the discount.
No, this is
Yay.
what happens. And she even has the queer brother and the queer brother's boyfriend to help her get the whole prosthetics because it's like a professional prosthetic job of like her face and her like bodysuit. Just it's very much got the big beats of Mrs. Doubtfire, like you mentioned, and instead of disgraced voiceover actor, it's former rock star of the band Screaming Kittens that was like niche popularity, but then burned out as fast.
He's
So
even better than that character because he's not a really great parent or responsible adult. She got fired. It's not her fault. However, he got fired on purpose because he wouldn't do what they told him to do. And then suddenly he's getting divorced. So there's that. But then there's also the other thing that's great about it is that her brother and his husband are continuously in the movie instead of we just gonna like bring out these two guys for a makeover scene because gay
yeah,
people
they're
can do
definitely
that. They're consistently there.
yeah, they really are though, and it's really funny because in the not to be too much spoilers, but if you've seen Mrs. Doubtfire, or if you've ever seen any movie where
Yeah.
someone farcically tries to conceal their true identity, you know eventually the gig is up. Like people figure it out. So eventually
You're gonna have to be
her
two places at once. And it doesn't make any sense in Mrs. Doubtfire how he managed to get in and out of that costume like 20 times in the same night. But it makes sense in My Secret Santa because she gets her brother to help her.
so yeah, that's what I
He's
mean.
on the
They're still
scene,
there. Yeah, it's
which
great.
includes a lot of some very hilarious scenes where her love interest thinks that Santa is screwing someone in the men's bathroom.
Yeah, and just
So
kind of dealing with that. And the thing part of it is it's funny is that like so she gets the Santa job because then she'll get hired because the snowboard school her daughter wants to go to is part of like this all-inclusive resort. It hires a Santa throughout the year, so they just have them. I don't know. It's go with it. But she becomes staff there so they can get the discount. And I guess she tried to pretend that being human, Hughman, man, Mann, meant that like it was the grandpa, so they could still get the, I don't know, however she figured it out on her forms, but it's working. So her daughter's in like snowboard camp, unaware her mom is doing the Mrs. Doubtfire thing to be like Santa. But the love interest is the Nepo baby who owns the resort because his dad does, and he has to work there as manager because he's like, you need responsibility, son.
Yeah, his dad owns the resort. He's gotten hired on as interim manager because I guess he's tired of his son not being serious. And
Yeah,
so
and
he just
farting about.
immediately promotes him over Natasha, who is the one who's been running things basically.
Yeah.
So you guys just immediately created an enemy for yourself. But anyway,
But
um,
the funny thing is like Matthew, who's the Nepo baby, is kind of falling for Santa in certain places. It's a mix of
yeah,
attraction to her personality, but
it's like a
also he
little bit of
definitely
a
has
Victor
dad
Victoria thing
issues.
going on in
Yeah,
there.
it
Like,
is.
wait, what's happening here?
And he
I thought I
definitely
was gonna
admits
have a
it.
dad relationship with Santa, and now
Yeah, because when they
um
finally reconcile at the very end of the movie after everything's whatever, and they have a little concert, and you actually hear her sing, blah 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 blah. He's like, he's like, yeah, I had some confusing feelings for a while for Santa, so this helps, or like something of that line. So like he's falling for
and he's
her
not
even
the
while
only
she's
one who
Santa.
was falling for Santa,
No,
as her landlord was also kind of falling for Santa. She just has chemistry with everyone, regardless of what she's wearing, which is
and the
basically,
actress does a great job. She's a very charming Santa. At first, she's not great at it, but then she really gets into it, and she's kind of like the Santa who's like your free therapist, which honestly, therapists are expensive, so that works really well. And I will say this is another movie that I think like the Jingle Bell Heist or even the Keller Family Christmas, which is again not Netflix, but it does well with balancing side characters because Natasha, who's played by one of the Maoris, I think Tamara, but like from
it's
Sister
yeah,
Sister.
I looked up.
Yeah, there you go. Twins, darn it. Anyway, she could be like a one note, you know, bitch or something. And like you would be for like trying to like reveal that there's something shady about Hugh Man, aka Taylor, the rock star who's just posing as Santa and just trying to be mean at Matthew. Like she has reason to be mad at Matthew. Like he doesn't want this job and she's worked her butt off for it and she knows how to manage. But that said, basically, her daughter spent the movie in the C plot bullying Taylor's daughter, but at one point, Santa, air quotes, sits down with Natasha's daughter and is like, yeah, I know you're having a hard time. You don't get to see your parents. I don't think you're a bully. Anyway, through the magic of Santa giving a pep talk, it also helps Natasha when she eventually talks to her daughter realize no one's been that bad. I haven't had enough time to spend with you. Maybe if Matthew and I work something out where he does some things that gets some stuff off my plate, we can kind of come to an understanding. But my point is, they could write her as this one note person who's just out to foil Santa and foil Taylor and ruin her day and just be ah, ha ha, laugh as an arch villain. And they really are all people who are just trying their best. I think that
Yeah,
really
I can't
comes
be mad at her when she
across.
punts a bunch of paperwork on his desk because like you wanted the job. Uh, is that
Yeah.
this is the work. And so there's that. So it is nice to see that Natasha isn't fully villainized because that would be a bad look. Um,
Yeah. I think that's fair too, because like I think it also goes to casting because they cast an actress who's already someone who's led a couple of her own shows by now and has a lot to do with even a small role. But I think it's a lot of just making sure you have characters who have more than one motivation. And so she wants to be the general manager because she's been working at it for a long time. She also wants to be a good mom. And so she finds a way to balance that by having to split the workload. But yeah, no one here is a villain and no one here is like completely perfect. It's all kind of just people. And I really appreciate that.
yeah, I
Because
also appreciate at the end when it's finally revealed Matthew isn't like so aghast at the betrayal of her not telling him this thing that really there's no way she could have known that she was going to go into this situation. He was going to end up being her boss because she had told him several times she didn't want to date him. Um,
yeah,
before they even get into doing that. So like as the situation escalates, like he knows that she needs the money and her suggestions for the hotel are smart, things that they should be thinking about. I think probably will help Natasha along the way as like another mother who's like letting them
yeah,
know
she
what
eventually
things to
gets
do.
upgraded from Santa to like family event planner, like family, like, yeah, people who manage like the daycare or whatever at the hotel and
With the
stuff.
kids so that people
Yeah.
can come to this resort and have their best life basically without having to have kids running around screaming everywhere.
Yeah, it's funny because for a movie where it's a hear me out movie of Mrs. Doubtfire, but gender flipped and Santa, you'd be, there's no way this can work, but it actually really does. And I think it's a testament to
And
writing
she
that's
doesn't
balanced
go
enough
back
and
to
good
being
acting.
Santa. It's like they're not like our solution is just to have a lady Santa forever. They're like, actually, let's just give you a job that's suited to
Mm,
your skills.
and meet your
Um,
talents. Yeah.
yeah.
So the last movie, which is the one where someone dies, but it's not sad exactly, is Ghosting, the Spirit of Christmas. You want to talk about that one for a second, Midnight? Like the little plot rundown?
Yeah. Okay. So our plot rundown here is that we have two best friends in LA, and they're played by Aisha Dee and Kimiko Glenn, who are both absolutely adorable, and I would watch in anything. Um, and they are kind of working out the post-mortem on their friendship because Aisha Dee's character dies very early on, and her spirit is in the rest of the movie anyway. And they're really interesting characters, both of them, as that you have Jess, who is this kind of directionless, feminist, very passionate ADHD kind of person, and then Kara, who is basically a professional tea specialist and interested in like all the earthy, like healing kind of things. But she is somewhat afraid to branch out on her own and do things without Jess. And I wonder what that's about because Carrie doesn't really have any family around. So it's a bummer that her best friend died.
Yeah.
So the setup of the movie is okay, Jess just lost another job. She comes over to Kara. Kara makes a special Jess tea that smells like her conditioner. And then she goes on a date with a guy that she really hits it off with, Ben. And then on her way home, she's looking at her phone and she gets hit by a car. And that's
Do not
it.
text and drive. Yeah.
Don't text and drive. Um, but she's lingering around and they're trying to figure out throughout the course of the film why is she still here? Why can't she move on? It's nice for them to still have this time with each other, but also she can't open doors on her own. Of her physicality, I think Kara says, is very confusing. Eventually she's going to have to move on, but they don't want to let each other go. So they go to this spiritualist and they say that the only reason that she would be here is like big love, if there's something that she needs to resolve. And she's like, maybe I need to date that guy. And so they try dating and things just keep not working out. So this is basically what's going on here. And one of the biggest hear me outs of our main character died, but don't be sad.
Yeah. And so basically, then she ends up having to find that big love. And the guy she had that one date with and was texting with before the car accident can see her. Like the only two people who can see
Yeah.
her as a ghost are that dude and
Yeah.
Kara.
Bennett and Kara. Yeah.
And it's kind of fun because he has a sister, and Kara and the sister kind of are sweetheart each other and sort of develop like a relationship. The sister is a psychology major, and she's convinced that it's some sort of weird coping mechanism, especially for her brother. So she doesn't really believe in the ghost thing. I think she comes around a little bit as it goes, but it's like it's funny to see her in that like that psychologist, there's a logical explanation mode. But throughout the course of the movie, you think that it's going to be about Ben, and they do end up because for contrivances, I guess on some night on like I think it's solstice, you
Yeah.
can are closest to the living, so you can have tangibility enough to have sex, go with it. So they do, but then she doesn't actually poof off to the next world or whatever. And they realize that maybe the big love doesn't mean like it has to be romantic love. So a lot of this is about the two best friends and some of the codependency that's held Kara back because even after Jess's death, she doesn't feel like she could just go and pick up and go to Morocco, or she wants to, but like then Jess is like, well, what I'm gonna do? And she's like, well, you're dead. So it's just like trying to figure out what do you owe to each other and how do you stop being codependent even when one of you isn't technically like
Yeah.
physically around anymore. And so it's really more about friendship. And I think a lot of it was refreshing for me, even though apparently this movie was made 6 years ago or something and didn't come to
Yeah.
Netflix till now. But it was refreshing for me because so much of Christmas movies tend to focus on romance, like just regular romance. But that's
To the
fine.
exclusion of everything else. I mean, this movie does not say that she doesn't get to have her love with Ben because we see that in the afterlife she will be with him. I'm not going to say
Yeah.
any more than that, but like she'll get to see him eventually. But like the big love, the thing that they have to resolve is getting Kara to a place where she can accept her friend's death, where she can move on with her life, where she has a couple of other human connections besides her best friend's parents. So
Yeah.
it's really important for her to have that. And I think also for her girlfriend, May. The one thing I would have liked is like towards the end of this is for when they do have the flash forward for us to see her and May together again, but we do know that they end up together.
Yeah. So I think with this year, and I don't know if it's just by chance. I mean, because most of it, what happens is I go through what Netflix has that's kind of newer and available to watch. But like, I would say some of the ones that we liked the most, like some of them would definitely have central romances and mostly heteronormative this year. But I think it was nice that this year we also had, at least with the Keller family Christmas vacation and ghosting, the spirit of Christmas, it's like, what about friend relationships? What about sibling relationships? Even in the Jingle Bell heist, the relationship between Sophia and her mom is a really
Yeah.
cornerstone part of that. And Champagne Problems is very much strict like romance thing there, but there's enough interaction with becoming sort of a found family where weirdly enough,
Yeah.
all the people trying to compete for the vineyard like a year later have all mostly with Otto and Roberto stayed around to also help Henri with his real dream to like open a bookshop while his dad's doing champagne things. So like they become sort of a found little quirky family at the bookshop. Otto's just reading children's stories. I don't know, he's a special guy. But I appreciate that this year I had a lot more things to choose from or to see that weren't just only romance counts. You can't be single at Christmas, ironically enough. But the ones I
Mhm.
liked the best were like, let's explore friendship and what does that look like? What does moving on look like? What does, you know, having your siblings and you're all adults at Christmas? I think those are interesting because it's sides we don't always get to see. And I've missed like having movies that had a little bit more depth to them than that, or just
Right.
weren't always like, I'm a 20 something, I'm gonna date someone kind of thing.
And that doesn't mean that it can't be fun because all the ones on the top of our list have really fun scenes, things that made us laugh out loud.
Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so I think the takeaway here is that when you're writing romance, it's not just like banging the Barbies together. If it helps you create a character when they have these deeper ties with other people around them.
Well, they
And
themselves feel more like people if they have actual people they're hanging out with, right?
yeah, and it's a different character if they don't have anybody, right? Is
Yeah.
you have to think about that and the depth that you get from the person, even if you are a professional tea specialist. What does that job say about your character versus of, oh, she's a party planner or something? So of like just tacking on, here's the job and here's a friend that they talk to occasionally just so that they can tell you to go get with someone else. The web of relationships that you have in the story are important for creating the character, and having strong characters is important for writing a romance.
Yeah, because you don't want to see people who are basically cardboard cutouts fall in love because that's not really all that rewarding or interesting either.
One of the biggest complaints, well, not biggest, but frequent complaints in, because I look at the romantasy Reddits all the time, of that they're upset that characters seem interchangeable. And I think that is something you could tell me of, like, is that something that is a common complaint among
Yeah,
regular
and
romance
that's
when
what I
they
was
see?
saying the other day is that there's been this feeling in romance where characters who meet each other lately are already kind of complete or don't have other problems or internal conflicts to overcome themselves. So they feel like not necessarily matching beverages together in some of the more current books out there, but more like the romance is a plot, but the characters themselves are at a homeostasis where they don't have a lot of interesting character development for each one, or
Yeah.
all three, or if you're Menage or whatever. But like just that they kind of exist and they're kind of already doing okay. So do they or do they not get together? And I think you have to make all your characters a hot mess. Although in some of these movies, like with the Santa one, it doesn't hurt that her life's kind of a whole hot mess.
I'll
But
be
like,
honest, I like a big girl mess.
yeah, me too. So like, because I am one, but I just feel like you need to have something going on for your characters. I know that sounds super self-obvious, but I've read so many books and edited so many books where you have that my best friend character really just exists to be the cheerleader for me, and I don't see any other internal life or personality in them except being like a sex cheerleader. And it's frustrating and it's not very interesting and it's not very rewarding.
Yeah.
Well, midnight, that does it for us for today. We're hopefully trying to get one other Christmas thing out before New Year's happens. But thank you, everybody, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks here at the Otherlands Editing Podcast. Thank you for joining the Otherlands Editing Podcast. Look for our next episode coming soon, and in the interim, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Also, if you want more information or want to connect, you can find Margaret Bates and Midnight Voss at our site, Otherlands Editing. Until next time, keep writing and keep refining your words.